Hi there guys, I hope you have had a good day. Now, Daniel Dubois, who is a British prospect heavyweight who will be fighting Joe Joyce next, has said that he will knock out Dillian Whyte. Now, this comes after Frank Warren put together that poster where Matchroom versus Queensberry, and obviously Dubois was matched against Dillian Whyte, which is odd because that fight cannot happen because Dillian Whyte is next fighting Alexander Povetkin. Then he is mandatory, if he wins, to Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, provided who wins that fight. But Daniel Dubois is going to be fighting Joe Joyce in October, so how is he going to be able to fight Dillian Whyte anyway? And the fact that he says he will knock out Dillian Whyte, I don't see how he can believe that at this point in his career. Obviously, you have to have belief in yourself and, expect that you can beat the top guys. But at the moment, coming off a win over Fujimoto, how does that tell him that he can beat and even knock out Dillian Whyte, considering the level he is at, then the level Dillian Whyte is at? Dillian Whyte is at world level. Daniel Dubois is at British level. So for him to say that he can jump those levels and suddenly spring a knockout over Dillian Whyte, that could be cause for concern because Dillian Whyte is, as I said, levels above Daniel Dubois. Now that's not to say Daniel Dubois cannot get to those levels. I believe he will, but ultimately he's not there yet. He is still very young, especially for a heavyweight, and also he has to come through Joe Joyce first. There's no guarantees he's going to win that fight. So looking ahead to a Dillian Whyte fight and saying that he will knock him out, I believe maybe is looking too far into the future for Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois is currently 14-0 with 13 knockouts. Dillian Whyte is 28-1 with 18 knockouts. So you can see that Dillian Whyte has had twice as many fights as Daniel Dubois, and not just twice as many fights. Look at the opponents Dillian Whyte has faced compared to Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois' best opponent is Nathan Gorman, and no disrespect to Nathan Gorman, but we don't even know how good he was really. So they fought at British level when both of them were still just prospects. In fact, Daniel Dubois still can be considered as a prospect because he is very early into his career, very early also into his heavyweight career, because as I said before, heavyweights, they mature a lot later. But that being said, it is important that young fighters believe that they can reach the top and knock out the ones who are at the top. But at the moment, I just don't see how Daniel Dubois can go from Fujimoto to Dillian Whyte. Obviously, he's not going to. He's got Pfeiffer and Joe Joyce and then possibly Dillian Whyte. But I don't think that will happen because Dillian Whyte is mandatory to the winner of the WBC world title between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. He's not going to push that aside to fight Daniel Dubois. Now, Frank Warren, promoter of Daniel Dubois, did explain that what should happen is Tyson Fury fights Deontay Wilder, and provided he wins that fight, which Frank Warren believes he will, I do too, but provided Tyson Fury wins that fight, then Tyson Fury should be allowed to go and fight Anthony Joshua for undisputed, and Dillian Whyte should wait for his opportunity and fight Daniel Dubois in the meantime. That is what Frank Warren has said about the possible matchup between Dillian Whyte and Daniel Dubois, which cannot happen because Dillian Whyte is not going to miss an opportunity to fight for the WBC world title to go back down to British level to fight Daniel Dubois. Who would do that? No one would. Well, Dillian Whyte might, because you know what he's like. He loves to fight. He doesn't really care who he's fighting. He just wants to get in there and fight. Look at him now, going to be mandatory for the WBC, yet he's fighting Alexander Povetkin. So that just tells you all you need to know about Dillian Whyte. He'll just fight. Doesn't matter who they are, what they've done in the past. He'll get in there and he will fight them. But not if it means he misses his opportunity at the WBC world title, the thing he has worked for over the past few years. 1,000 days as a WBC number one. Yet still, the shot has eluded him. So he's not going to put that off so he can go and face Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois is not ready anyway because, as I said, coming off a fight against Fujimoto, going from that to Dillian Whyte, and Fujimoto was just like a knockover job. You cannot believe that Fujimoto was ever going to beat Daniel Dubois. If he did, then Daniel Dubois is not the fighter we believed he was. And he had that Nathan Gorman fight, then went on and had two pretty much glorified spars. So you would think from Nathan Gorman, start moving on, start pushing forward. But I guess it's happening now with Joe Joyce. It's just those last two fights didn't really need to happen and didn't really teach Daniel Dubois all that much. Those fights, as I said, were just glorified spars. In fact, he would have learned more from sparring than those two fights. The Nathan Gorman fight was a good fight, a good learning fight for Daniel Dubois. Joe Joyce will be as well. Joe Joyce is a step up for Dubois to European level because the European title will be on the line. Then maybe Dubois can start looking to go for the champions, at least eliminators, with some of the top fighters. Maybe go Joe Joyce and then look to get in with someone like Carlos Takam, someone around that sort of level, like a gatekeeper. Then go for Andy Ruiz Jr., someone like that, Joseph Parker, those kind of fighters. This pool of heavyweights sitting just outside of the champions, and the number one ranked opponent to them has to be Dillian Whyte, maybe Usyk as well, but those pool of heavyweights, Andy Ruiz Jr., Joseph Parker, Luis Ortiz, Michael Hunter, Robert Helenius, and even Charles Martin, yeah, kind of, but Filip Hrgovic as well, Oscar Rivas, Derek Chisora. I mean, those kind of fighters who are sitting just outside of the champion, hoping for their opportunity. We cannot count Dillian Whyte in that. I don't believe we can count Alexander Usyk in that as well, because they are both mandatories, and you kind of have to put them above that pool of heavyweights who are waiting for their opportunity, because the opportunities have been earned by certainly Dillian Whyte. Usyk as well, because obviously he was undisputed at cruiserweight coming up. He becomes mandatory to the WBO belt. But that pool of heavyweights sitting just outside of the champions, they should all fight one another for their opportunity if they believe they are good enough. And to be honest, if they can't beat that pool of heavyweights to get to the champions, then they're not going to win the world title in a fight with the champ anyway. So the best way to determine who gets their opportunity is for them to fight one another. So Dubois should go Joe Joyce, then for a gatekeeper, then start looking for the top guys in the top 10. Get a top 10 opponent on his resume, then he can start talking about a Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte is, as I said, just above that pool of heavyweights waiting for their next opportunity. So he's not a champion at the moment, but he is WBC interim champion. So he's levels above Daniel Dubois. Dubois is 3 or 4 fights away from an opportunity at Dillian Whyte. The most important thing for Daniel Dubois at the moment is Joe Joyce. Nothing else, nothing beyond that, and no fights with Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte is on a different level to Daniel Dubois. And him saying that he will knock Dillian Whyte out, yeah, that's great. Obviously, it builds a potential fight between those two, but that fight will not happen over the next 2 years at least, because no disrespect, but Dillian Whyte has bigger fish to fry at the moment. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.